Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video, we are tackling one of the most iconic anime of all time, One Piece. Before we get any further, make sure to subscribe to this channel and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you never miss any updates. Now without further ado, let's get it. The East Blue Saga serving as the beginning of Luffy's journey to becoming king of the pirates. The saga ran from 1999 to 2001 in the anime and spans a total of 61 episodes. So let's get into the story. Romance Dawn. The story begins with Gold Roger, the Pirate King, whose final words about a hidden treasure sparked the great age of pirates. Years later, in Fuchsia Village, a boy named Monkey D. Luffy idolizes the red hair pirates and begs their leader Shanks to let him join. But Shanks refuses because he was too young. After accidentally eating a devil fruit, Luffy gains a rubber body, but lost the ability to swim. When bandits kidnap him and throw him into the sea, Shanks saves Luffy's life from a sea king, sacrificing his arm in the process. Before leaving the village, Shanks entrusts Luffy with his straw hat, inspiring him to build his own crew of pirates and become Pirate King. 10 years later, Luffy defeats the same Sea King and meets Koby, a timid cabin boy trapped under the cruel pirate Alvida. Luffy's courage inspires Koby to pursue his dream of joining the Marines, while Luffy defeats Alvida and continues onwards. Luffy reaches Shell's Town and decides to recruit the feared pirate hunter swordsman Roronoa Zoro, who had been unjustly imprisoned by the corrupt Captain Morgan. After retrieving Zoro's swords and defeating Morgan and his crew, Luffy earned Zoro as his first crewmate, while Koby found the courage to begin his marine journey. Orange Town. Luffy and Zoro's journey begins in typical chaos, lost at sea and starving because neither can navigate. They try to catch food when Luffy is snatched away by a giant bird. While chasing after him, Zoro encounters three battered pirates who explain they were tricked by a clever thief that stole their boat and left them stranded. That same thief, Nami, soon appears in Orange Town, fleeing Buggy the Clown's men after stealing a map of the Grand Line. When Luffy crash lands in the middle of the chase, Nami uses him as a distraction, and after seeing his strength, introduces herself as a pirate thief. Though, she first tries to manipulate Luffy and hands him over to Buggy. She cannot bring herself to actually kill him, and Zoro arrives in time to help them escape. As Buggy's strange devil fruit powers, the Chop Chop fruit allows him to chop up his body and send it flying into different pieces in battle. Him and his crew terrorize the deserted town, when Luffy meets a loyal dog and is moved by the destruction of his pet shop. After defeating some of Buggy's crew, Luffy finally takes down Buggy with the help of Zoro and Nami. In the end, Nami joins them temporarily, and the townspeople are saved as the three pirates sail away together one step closer to the Grand Line. Syrup Village. Luffy, Zoro, and Nami first arrive on the island of rare animals, where they meet Gaimon, a stranded pirate who has spent 20 years trapped inside a treasure chest while guarding what he believes is a valuable stash on top of a rock. After helping him reach the treasure, they discover the chests are empty, but he chooses to stay anyway, finding new purpose in protecting the island's rare animals, who have become his true treasure. Leaving him behind, the trio sail on to Syrup Village in search of his ship. There, they meet Usopp, a loud but good-hearted liar who leads a small band of village kids and dreams of being a great pirate. The Straw Hats quickly learn that Usopp's sick friend Kaya is being cared for by her butler, Clawador, who is secretly the evil pirate Captain Kuro, a notorious pirate plotting to steal her fortune and murder anyone in his way. When Luffy and Usopp overhear the plan, no one believes their warning. Since Usopp is such a damn bold-faced liar and this man just destroyed all his own credibility, I wonder if we're gonna believe Usopp this time. You know, the same guy that runs a band of 1 million pirates at his beck and call? Stupid ass Usopp. Forcing the Straw Hats to stand alone against the coming Black Cat pirates. The battle is chaotic, with traps flying, pirates landing on the wrong beach, and Luffy, Zoro, Nami, and Usopp all struggling to hold their own. Usopp eventually proves his bravery, Zoro defeats some of Kuro's crew, and Luffy finally brings down Kuro after seeing how little he values his own crew. In the aftermath, Kaya rewards the Straw Hats with a ship, the Going Merry, and Usopp leaves his old life behind to join them, finally as a real pirate. Baratie. With the Going Merry finally theirs, Luffy, Zoro, Nami, and Usopp begin settling into life as a real pirate crew, even designing their own Jolly Roger and testing the ship's cannons. Their fun quickly caused trouble when they accidentally fire on two bounty hunters, Johnny and Yosaku. who turn out to be old friends of Zoro. After Nami treated Yosaku's scurvy, the pair guided the crew to the floating restaurant Baratie, where they said the Straw Hats might find a cook that they desperately need for their journey to the Grand Line. At the Baratie, Luffy accidentally damages the restaurant and is forced to work to pay off his debt, while the crew meets Sanji, a sharp-tongued chef whose kindness is showed when he secretly feeds Gin, a starving pirate from the fearsome Don Krieg's fleet. That single act of mercy sets off a crisis, because Gin eventually returns to Krieg, who soon invades the Baratie in search of food and a way to rebuild his shattered pirate armada after losing everything on the Grand Line. In the middle of this chaos, Nami suddenly steals the Going Merry and the crew's treasures, shocking everyone. Yo, honestly, Nami has been a big snake at the beginning of the series, eh? She continues to snake when we get to the next arc, but let's carry on. Before the others could chase her, the battlefield is interrupted by Dracule Mihawk, aka Hawkeye Mihawk, the world's greatest swordsman. Zoro challenges him in pursuit of his dream to become the best swordsman on the planet, but is overwhelmingly defeated. Even so, Zoro's resolve impresses Mihawk, and after surviving, Zoro swears to Luffy that he will never lose again. As the battle with Krieg escalates, Sanji's past with Zeph is revealed. The two had once been stranded together, and Zeph had sacrificed everything to keep Sanji alive because they shared the same dream of finding the All Blue, a legendary mythical sea said to be the only place where the four seas, north, south, east, and west, meet, making it a paradise for chefs looking to source ingredients. Re-inspired by his memory of their bond and Zeph's sacrifices, including giving up his foot because bro was a legendary pirate that could literally kick ass, Sanji joins in on the fight and Luffy eventually defeats Krieg. Afterward, Sanji finally accepts an invitation to join Luffy's crew after repeatedly refusing because he hears his crew shitting on him, attacking his food, attacking his personal character, but really, it was all in an attempt to push him to grow. Aw, ain't that sweet? And tearfully leaving the Baratie behind, just as word comes out that Nami is headed for an even more dangerous island, Arlong Park. After Nami left the crew at Baratie, Luffy, Sanji, and Yosaku chase her toward Arlong Park, where Yosaku explains the danger ahead and why he suspects Nami has ties to the dangerous fishman, Arlong. When Nami arrives, it's revealed that she is a part of Arlong's crew, shocking everyone. At the same time, Zoro, Usopp, and Johnny reach the island and see the destruction that Arlong has brought. Usopp learns from Nojiko, Nami's foster sister, that the island was Nami's home, while Zoro witnesses Nami apparently serving Arlong, even beating him and appearing to kill him to maintain her cover. However, the truth slowly comes out. Years ago, when Nami was still just a little girl, Arlong took over Kokoyashi village by forcing everyone to pay for their lives. Arlong's ugly ass decided to tax everyone just to not kill them and put a price on everyone's head, literally. Nami's adoptive mother, Bellamere, decided to try and spare Nami and her foster sister Nojiko. However, ultimately ended up sacrificing her life and getting killed by Arlong. After this, Nami decided to work under him due to her map drawing skills, with the dream of earning 100 million berry to eventually buy back herself and all of the villagers' freedom. Thus, her hatred, greed, and betrayals have all been a part of this desperate plan born from tragedy. But just as Nami is finally near her goal, a corrupt marine steals her savings, with Arlong being the mastermind behind it all. Talk about trust issues. Yo, no wonder Nami was so messed up at the beginning. Broken and furious, Nami tries to stop the villagers from throwing their lives away and rebelling against Arlong, and in a rage, stabs her own tattoo trying to cut it off of her shoulder when she was branded as part of Arlong's gang. Thankfully, Luffy finally steps in and stops her, and Nami asks him for help. Luffy places his straw hat on her head and leads the crew into Arlong Park. While Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp defeat Arlong's officers, Luffy finally faces Arlong himself. After learning how Nami had been forced to draw maps in a room for years, like a prisoner, Luffy destroys the room, the tower, and Arlong with one final blow. With Arlong defeated, Kokoyashi is freed, and Nami joins the Straw Hats for real. The crew sailing away at last with peace restored. Loguetown. After causing such a ruckus, the Straw Hats discover that Luffy has earned his first bounty of 30 million berry. My boy got his own wanted poster. That's the Willa D right there. Y'all finna find out about that later. A moment that thrills him, even as Nami warns him that it's only gonna bring more trouble. Soon after, they arrive in Loguetown, the final stop before the Grand Line, and the place where Gold Roger was born and executed. While the crew shops for supplies, Zoro replaces his broken swords and earns both Sandai Kitetsu and Yubashiri, after proving his luck and courage. At the same time, Luffy visits Roger's execution platform, only to be captured by old enemies Buggy and Alvida, who plan to kill him publicly. Now, plot twist, Alvida, man doesn't even recognize who the hell she is because she got that Ozempic treatment, fucking ate a smooth fruit out here. Now she's slipping and sliding around like Diddy covered in baby oil. Pause. As Zoro and Sanji rush to save him, Luffy smiles calmly in the face of death until a sudden lightning strike destroys the platform and frees him, electrocuting Buggy. The chain-smoking Marine, Smoker, then tries to pursue the crew, but a mysterious stranger helps Luffy escape from the shadows. Reunited on the Going Merry, the Straw Hats sail toward the Grand Line and declare their dreams together before entering the next stage of their journey. Alabasta. Adapted from Ichiro Oda's manga, the Alabasta Saga covers the Straw Hats' arrival in the desert kingdom of Alabasta as they try to help Princess Vivi stop a full-scale civil war. Alabasta ran from 2001 to 2002 in the anime and spans a total of 74 episodes. So, let's get into the story. Reverse Mountain. As the Straw Hats approach the Grand Line, they survive a storm, escape a deadly calm belt and its Sea King, and ride the current up Reverse Mountain. After crashing down the other side, they collided with Laboon, a giant whale blocking their path, and are swallowed into his body. Inside, they meet Crocus and cross paths with the mysterious Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday, whom Luffy quickly defeats. Crocus reveals Laboon had waited over 50 years for a pirate crew that snaked his ass and never came back after promising to never forget their friend. Why would you do this to Laboon? Yo, I'ma shed some tears for Laboon. And because of that, he's been continuously raging and bucking his head. Look at all the scars on this guy. Like, dog, what are you doing? You're gonna end your own life. Moved by this, Luffy declares Laboon his new friend and promises to return back to play with him after his own adventure's done, paints his Jolly Roger on the whale, and receives a log post from Crocus, making their way so they can set sail toward Whisky Peak. Whisky Peak. As the Straw Hats enter the Grand Line, they reach Whisky Peak after surviving its wild and unpredictable weather. Because the log pose needs time to reset, they dock there and are surprisingly welcomed like heroes by the townspeople, who throw them a huge feast and get them wasted. While most of the crew relax and fall asleep, Zoro and Nami stay alert, and their suspicion proves to be right when the townspeople are revealed to be bounty hunters from a secret criminal organization called Baroque Works. Zoro single-handedly defeats wave after wave of attackers, including Mr. 8, Mr. 9, Miss Monday, and Miss Wednesday. Soon, however, the truth comes out that Miss Wednesday is actually Princess Vivi of Alabasta, and Mr. 8 is one of her loyal subjects from the kingdom, Igaram, her royal guard, both working undercover to stop Baroque Works from destroying her kingdom. Vivi reveals that the organization's leader, Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the seas, is behind the madness, but no one else knows his identity. After Igaram is seemingly killed protecting Vivi, the Straw Hats choose to take Vivi with them and set sail for Little Garden. Diary of Koby. Also, Koby gets recruited into the Marines by Vice Admiral Garp for trying to help stop Morgan from escaping, this ugly ass dude with the big metal jaw that Luffy defeated in the last saga. So, good for Koby. Little Garden. With Vivi aboard, the Straw Hats land on Little Garden, a prehistoric island where dinosaurs roam and everything feels enormous. While Luffy and Vivi explore, Nami and Usopp meet Broggy, and later, the crew learns about Broggy and Dory, 2 giants from Elbath who had been dueling for 100 years. Their pride, strength, and sense of honor deeply inspires Usopp, who sees them as the kind of brave warriors that he wants to become. I don't know if that's ever gonna happen with your lion bitch ass, but we'll see, Usopp. However, this newfound peace did not last. Baroque Works agents arrive with orders to kill the giants and the Straw Hats. Mr. 5 secretly rigged Dory's drink to explode, leaving him injured before his duel with Broggy. In the chaos, Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week capture Zoro, Nami, and later Vivi, trapping them in a giant wax candle set meant to turn them into statues, while Luffy is pinned down and manipulated by Miss Golden Week's painting powers. The crew fights back desperately. Usopp eventually snaps Luffy out of his hypnosis and helps create a plan to melt the wax before their friends are sealed forever. Luffy defeats Mr. 3, Usopp outsmarts Mr. 5, Karu helps defeat Miss Golden Week, and Nami and Vivi help to turn the battle around as well. Meanwhile, Sanji accidentally intercepts a call from Mr. Zero, aka Crocodile, giving the crew a small but important advantage by pretending to be one of the agents in Baroque Works and saying that he killed the Straw Hats. In the end, Dory and Bragi recover and repay the Straw Hats by helping them leave Little Garden, destroying the giant island eater in the ocean so the crew could continue their journey towards Alabasta. Drum Island. After leaving Little Garden, the Straw Hats are thrown into another crisis when Nami comes down with a deadly fever, forcing the crew to abandon their route and head for Drum Island in search of a doctor. On the way, they're attacked by the gluttonous pirate Wapol. Yo, look at this man's ugly fucking beak, bro. Like, this man pissed me the hell off, bro. Buddy's out here eating fucking wood with his ugly ass metal jaw. Get this man off my screen. But Luffy sends him flying before the crew reaches the snowy kingless country. There, a knight named Dalton explains that Wapol had once ruled Drum as a cruel tyrant, forcing all the doctors in the island to be under his control so that people would have to depend solely on him. Now, only one doctor remains, the feared but brilliant Dr. Kariha, who lives high atop Drum Castle. With Nami growing worse, Luffy carries both her and the injured Sanji up the freezing mountain after surviving an avalanche, collapsing at last before Kariha and her strange reindeer-looking assistant named Tony Chopper. While Nami recovers, Chopper's tragic past comes to light. Once a normal reindeer, after eating the human fruit, he turns into a half-man, half-reindeer hybrid, resulting in him being rejected by both humans and reindeer as a monster. Yo, this was the saddest arc in the story so far. Honest to God, this arc pulled at my heartstrings. Like, yo, when Tony's crying and all he wants is a friend and a home, like, yo, let Tony live, bro. Chopper's my guy. Chopper eventually gets taken in by the eccentric Dr. Hiruluk, who inspires him to become a doctor as well when Chopper overhears that Hiruluk was dying from a terminal illness. In a desperate attempt to save him, Chopper goes on a quest to find this rare-ass mushroom that he read about in one of Dr. Hiruluk's books that could cure any disease. He goes back through his old reindeer buddies, fights them, almost loses his life, but Chopper gets the mushroom, comes back home, and makes a mushroom soup for Dr. Hiruluk out of deep love and desperation to save him. Unfortunately, Chopper misread the book. The medicine was not a cure-all for any disease, but a poison that would kill anybody. Hiruluk, realizing this, ate the soup anyway, as he wanted to avoid breaking Chopper's heart, and chose to accept that his adoptive son was only trying to save him. He drinks the poison and decides either way he's gonna die, so he might as well go out guns a-blazing. Pulls up on Wapol's castle and, in a desperate attempt to try and save the people of Drum, ends up sacrificing his life and dying in the process, leaving Chopper all alone. After this, Tony was taken in by Dr. Kariha and became her medical assistant, eventually being taught how to become a doctor by her himself. Now, as Wapol returns to take back his kingdom, he attacks Drum Castle and tries to destroy Hiruluk's pirate flag that was left behind, but Luffy protects it with his own body. Chopper finally fights back using his rumble balls to defeat Wapol's fused henchmen, while Luffy chases Wapol down and blasts him away for good. In the aftermath, Luffy convinces Chopper to join the crew. As the Straw Hats depart, Kariha gave her student a final farewell by filling the snowy sky with the pink cherry blossoms, which was Hiruluk's plan to reignite the sparks in the people of Drum Kingdom, sending Chopper off towards Alabasta and a new life at sea. Alabasta. On the way to Alabasta, the Straw Hats, unbeknownst to them, meet Mr. 2 Bon Clay after accidentally hooking him while fishing. His strange but entertaining personality quickly wins everyone over, and he shows off the clone fruit by transforming his face into most of the Straw Hats before leaving. After he leaves, Vivi's horrified when she realizes too late that this cheerful new friend was actually one of Baroque Works' top agents. To protect themselves from his impersonation ability, the crew secretly marks their arms with X's before continuing on. When they finally reach Nanohana, they find out that Crocodile is worshipped as a hero by the people, even as he secretly works to destroy the kingdom from within. In Nanohana, Luffy wanders off in search of food and accidentally crashes into a confrontation between Smoker, the chain-smoking marine with the smoke fruit, who can turn his own body into smoke, and everyone's favorite, Portis D. Ace. His carelessness leads the Marines straight to the crew, but Ace steps in and rescues them using his flame fruit powers, revealing himself as Luffy's older brother, and later gives Luffy a card before leaving the desert. Vivi then sent Karu ahead to warn the palace of what's going on. After that, the Straw Hats cross the desert, battling heat, thieves, giant creatures, and exhaustion. They pass through ruined landscapes and eventually reach Yuba, where Vivi reunites with Toto and is reminded of her childhood bond with her friend Koza, now the leader of the rebels. There, Luffy challenges Vivi's desperate plan to stop the rebels directly, arguing that none of it would matter if Crocodile remains free. After a fierce argument, Vivi accepts that they have to go to Rain Base and strike at the real source of the war, Crocodile himself. At the same time, Crocodile gathers Baroque Works' top agents and sets the final phase of his plan in motion. In Rain Base, the Straw Hats run into Smoker again and are lured into Crocodile's casino, Rain Dinners, where Luffy, Zoro, Nami, Usopp, and even Smoker are trapped in a sea stone cage. Vivi, however, was separated before this and was not captured, and Crocodile openly explains how he intended to collapse Alabasta through deception and spark a civil war between the royals and the rebels. Meanwhile, in Nanohana, Bon Clay disguises himself as King Cobra and falsely confesses to using dance powder, a forbidden substance that causes rain to appear in one location at the expense of depriving other locations of rain, causing droughts, effectively causing the drought throughout the rest of the kingdom and contributing to the suffering that has been going on to the commoners in other parts of Alabasta. Hearing this, the rebels are driven into a frenzy, which pushes Koza to declaring all-out war. Elsewhere, Sanji, acting as Mr. Prince as a cover, outwitted Crocodile with a phone call, worked with Chopper as a decoy, and helped free the trapped group. Luffy then stayed behind to fight Crocodile, but is utterly defeated, stabbed, dehydrated, and left for dead in the desert before secretly being saved by Miss All Sunday, Crocodile's second in command. As the rebellion explodes in Alaburna, the crew split up to stop Baroque Works officers and uncover the hidden bomb meant to ensure total destruction. Usopp and Chopper then defeat Mr. 4 and Miss Merry Christmas. Sanji beats Mr. 2, Nami overcomes Miss Doublefinger, and Zoro defeats Mr. 1. Vivi then races through the city trying to stop the fighting, only to learn that the cannon in the clock tower is actually a timed bomb. Her honorable knight, Pell, carries it high, transforms using his devil fruit powers, and carries it into the sky, seemingly sacrificing himself to save the capital. But even then, the armies keep fighting because no one can hear Vivi's cries to stop. Elsewhere, in the royal tomb, Miss All Sunday leads the real Nefertari Cobra, Vivi's dad and the king of Alabasta, to the Poneglyph, an ancient artifact with text said to know the location of an ultimate apocalyptic level weapon. Crocodile arrives seeking its secret and then turns on both Miss All Sunday and Cobra when Miss All Sunday refuses to tell him what the Poneglyph really says. Luffy then returns for one final battle, now understanding that Crocodile's sand body. Oh yeah, which I forgot to mention. The reason this man is so dangerous in the desert is because he has the sand fruit. So Buddy's literally just turning into sand and making it so you can't even hit him. Buddy's like Gaara on steroids. Luffy figures out though that Crocodile's body can be struck when it's hardened by liquid, even blood. Though poisoned by Crocodile's hook, Luffy refuses to fall, enduring everything thrown at him, and manages to harden Crocodile's body using his own blood. With the Gomu Gomu no Storm, a barrage of Gum pistols, smashing Crocodile up through the bedrock and into the heart of Alubarna. With Crocodile defeated, rain finally falls on Alabasta, and the war soon comes to an end. In the aftermath, Vivi chooses to stay behind and help rebuild her country. The Straw Hats, unable to publicly acknowledge her as the Marines come approaching in, raise their marked arms in a silent farewell to Vivi. But just as they leave, Miss All Sunday reveals herself on board as Nico Robin and asks to join the crew. Luffy accepts and the crew sails on from Alabasta, carrying both the pain of goodbye and the surprise of a new beginning. Adapted from Ichiro Oda's manga, the Sky Island Saga covers the Straw Hats' journey from Jaya to the Sky Island of Skypiea, where they become caught in a conflict involving gods, the Shandorians, and the lost city of gold, Shandora. In the anime, the Sky Island Saga ran from 2002 to 2004 in Japan and spans a total of 71 episodes. So let's get into the story. Jaya. With Vivi now safe in Alabasta and Nico Robin newly aboard, the Straw Hats' next adventure begins when a giant ship suddenly falls from the sky. At the same time, their log posts started pointing upward, and Robin explained that it had locked onto a sky island. Curious, the crew explored the sunken wreck of the St. Brice, a ship that had disappeared over 200 years earlier, and found clues pointing to a legendary place called Skypiea. Their search for answers was interrupted by Mashira and his salvage crew. But after a chaotic encounter involving his giant monkey-looking ass, a giant sea turtle, and terrifying, huge monstrous shadows with wings in the sky, Robin eventually secured an eternal pose to Jaya so they could continue investigating. On Jaya, Luffy, Zoro, and Nami enter Mocktown, where they cross paths with many strange pirates, including Bellamy, and an unknown man who will actually be very important later to the story. I promise you, look at this man's hair, look at this man's gap tooth, don't underestimate him. Later, when Nami asks about Sky Island, Bellamy and the town mocks the very idea, laughing at their dreams of going to a city of gold, and laughing at the idea of Gold Roger's hidden treasure, the One Piece, as well. Even when Bellamy attacked them, Luffy and Zoro refused to fight back. Outside, this same stranger with his bucky teeth and his pot belly sitting on the ground praises their decision and reminds Luffy that people's dreams never truly end. The Straw Hats then seek out Mont Blanc Cricket, a descendant of the disgraced explorer Noland, who had been executed as a liar after claiming he found a city of gold. Cricket was conflicted if Noland told the truth and spent his life diving looking for proof. He also explained that Skypiea could only be reached through the Knockup Stream, and with help from Mashira, Shoujo, and Saruyama Alliance, the crew prepared the Going Merry and hunted down a South Bird to guide them. When Bellamy later beats Cricket and steals his gold, Luffy returns to Mocktown enraged. And this is where Bellamy fucked up. One of his crew members found a wanted poster with Luffy's face on it, showing that Luffy's bounty was 100 million berry. But the whole crew started laughing at this dude, saying that this poster must have been fake and that Luffy just looks like a weakling. But they should have listened to their man, because Luffy pulls back up and knocks Bellamy out in a single punch, shocking everyone. After returning the gold, the Straw Hats sailed up the Knockup Stream, nearly escaping a confrontation with the Blackbeard Pirates, led by the mysterious man they met earlier. Yeah, he gonna be a problem, let's wait on it. And were blasted high into the sky towards Skypiea. Skypiea. After riding the Knockup Stream into the sky, the Straw Hats found themselves in the White Sea, a vast ocean of clouds where even Devil Fruit users could sink. Before they could adjust, they were attacked by a masked rider, but an old man named the Sky Knight, aka Gonfall, arrived on his bird Pierre and drove the attacker off. He warned them that the thin air made fighting harder and gave them a whistle to call him if they get into trouble again. Soon after, the crew reached Heaven's Gate, where they were told to pay a massive entrance fee. Not understanding the local currency, they went through anyway, unknowingly becoming criminals in Skypiea. They arrived on Angel Island and are welcomed by Conus and her father, who introduced them to the Skypiean life and explained dials, shell-like tools that store energy, used to power technology as well as in battle. While the others learn about the island, Nami takes a waiver for a ride and wanders close to the Upper Yard, a forbidden sacred land ruled by their god Eneru and his priests. There, she sees just how terrifying Eneru is when he casually strikes down a treasure hunter with a lightning bolt from the sky without even showing his face. Meanwhile, back on the beach, the White Berets informed the Straw Hats that entering without paying had made them lawbreakers, and when the fee and punishments keep escalating, Luffy wiles out, pushing them into even greater danger. Later on, Conus tearfully admits that she had betrayed them under Eneru's orders, since refusing to follow his laws means death. Eneru immediately tries to kill her from afar, but Gonfall returns, saves her, and takes her and her father to safety. The crew is then taken to the upper yard, where they split up. Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp enter one of Eneru's priestly trials, the Ordeal of Balls, and fought Satori, who could predict their attacks using mantra. It's some telekinetic-like power that, I don't know, it's kind of like a sixth sense in a way, and you can hear shit. It's pretty cool. After a long struggle, they managed to defeat it. Elsewhere, Chopper stayed behind to guard the Going Merry, but gets attacked by another priest named Shura. He then calls Gonfall for help, yet even with the Sky Knight's aid, the ship still gets badly damaged, and Gonfall literally gets stabbed through his chest by Shura, which has Tony tweaking the hell out because now Chopper really thinks that all is lost. Meanwhile, Robin, Zoro, and Nami explore the forest and uncover their biggest revelation yet. Upper Yard was actually part of Jaya, which got knocked into the sky by the knockup stream. That meant that the City of Gold from Mont Blanc Nolan's story had never sunken into the sea at all. It had been blasted into the sky centuries earlier, and bro wasn't crazy. This man got executed for no reason. I'd be pissed the hell off if I was him. At the same time, the Shandorians, descendants of the original people of this land, were preparing to reclaim Upper Yard from Eneru and Skypiea, seeing both of them as their enemies. Their leader, Wiper, launches an assault once he learns that Gonfall and some of the priests are starting to take each other out. That night, the Straw Hats reunited, pooled their discoveries, and realized that they were standing above the lost City of Gold itself, Shandora. Gonfall then explains their deeper history. In the White Sea, soil, called Verth, was a priceless treasure, and when Jaya's land was blasted into the sky, Skypiea treated it as holy land. That created the generations-long war with the Shandorians, who had always called it home. Also, don't let me forget to mention that Gonfall actually used to be God. So this man was God, and then 6 years ago, Eneru just pulls up with his squad, takes over, and basically declares himself God now and is ruling over everybody with an iron fist. Or a lightning fist. Either way, he be fist demands. Wait. Okay, that didn't come out right, but you know what I mean. After Gonfall had got stabbed in the chest, luckily things worked out for him. They were able to fight Shura off, and when the crew got back, they got together. Tony was able to try and use his medical skills to bandage up Gonfall and treat his wounds and stuff. So everyone's still alive, they still rocking. During that night, Usopp then sees a strange figure secretly repairing the Going Merry, but has no idea who the hell it was. The next day, Eneru then begins his survival game, declaring that only 5 people would remain standing by the end. Upper Yard then becomes total chaos. Wiper defeats Shura with a rejectile, a devastating weapon that also damages the user. Zoro defeats Braum, and later Priest Ohm. Chopper beats Gedatsu, and Robin defeats Yama while exploring the ruins of Shandora, interested in finding some lost history. Once again, very important. Shout out to Oda. This man was always on his shit. Luffy, meanwhile, got swallowed by a giant python and spent a lot of the battle wandering through its stomach, thinking he was trapped in a freaking cave. Yo, Luffy. It's okay. He's Joy Boy. It's okay. Robin eventually found the ancient ruins and discovered a poneglyph, along with clues pointing to the missing golden bell. Eneru then moves through the battlefield effortlessly, striking down fighters from both sides with overwhelming lightning powers, thanks to the fact that he's eaten the Rumble fruit. So this man's actually just a devil fruit user. He ain't no god. Even Wiper's desperate attack using Sea Stone and a rejectile only stopped Eneru briefly before he restarted his own heart with electricity. Eneru then reveals his true plans. he intended to destroy Skypiea completely and leave for the fairy Birth, a supposedly endless land fit only for a god. His flying arc, the Maxim, was built from the gold of Shandora and powered by his lightning. With everyone else beaten down, Nami pretends to cooperate with him while waiting for a chance to escape. Then Luffy finally reaches Eneru. The fight completely changes. Eneru's stunned to discover that his lightning has no effect on Luffy because Luffy is made of rubber. Shout out to him eating the gum gum fruit. For the first time, Eneru had met a natural enemy who could actually hit him. Their battle rages across the Maxim as Eneru creates giant storm clouds and prepares a final attack to wipe out all the Sky Islands. Even after Eneru trapped a huge ball of gold onto Luffy's arm and knocked him away, Luffy refused to quit. Sanji sabotaged the arc from within, Usopp and Nami escape, and Konus warns the people below that Eneru was going to destroy everything. Luffy then climbed the giant beanstalk toward the Golden Bell, determined not only to stop Eneru, but to ring the bell so Mont Blanc Cricket on Jaya would know the City of Gold really existed in the sky. At the climax, Eneru unleashes a gigantic cloud to erase Skypiea. As the people pray, Luffy uses the golden ball on his arm to draw in the lightning, breaks through Eneru's attack, and sends him crashing into the Golden Bell. The bell rang across Skypiea and all the way down to Jaya, where Cricket heard it and saw Luffy's shadow in the sky. In that moment, Nolan's story was vindicated. Cricket's faith was rewarded, and the war between the Shandorians and the Skypieans finally came to an end. After all this, Eneru leaves for the moon. Robin then uncovers more history from the Poneglyph, and the Straw Hats depart the White Sea with gold, new answers, and another impossible dream made real. Water 7 Saga. After the Straw Hats made it through the Sky Island Saga and returned to the Blue Sea, this was a storyline that showed fans just how intense, dramatic, and character-driven One Piece could really get. This was the saga that tested the crew from within, introduced one of the most dangerous government threats they had faced so far, and proved that One Piece could balance heartbreak, betrayal, and mystery all at once. Water 7 Saga ran from 2004 to 2007 in Japan and spans a total of 116 episodes. So, let's get into the story. Long Ring Longland. Back in Mocktown, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, named Don Quixote do Flamengo, uses his devil fruit powers to force Bellamy and Sarkis to attack each other, punishing them for disgracing his name through their defeat at the hands of Luffy and the Straw Hats. After casting them out of his crew, he declares that the new age of piracy has begun, where only the truly strong will survive. Elsewhere, after returning from the sky, the Straw Hats landed on the bizarre island of Long Ring Longland, where everything was stretched and strange. While exploring, Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper met Tonjit, an old nomad who had spent 10 years stranded atop tall bamboo stilts waiting to reunite with his horse Shelly. Their peaceful moment was interrupted when Foxy, the Silver Fox, shot Shelly and challenged Luffy to a Davy back fight, a pirate contest where crews could steal each other's members. Angry and tricked into accepting, Luffy put his crew on the line against Foxy's cheating pirates. In the first event, Foxy's tricks helped his side win, and Chopper was taken, leaving him heartbroken until Zoro harshly reminded him to stay strong while they fought to win him back. Zoro and Sanji then overcame both the groggy monsters and the biased referee to reclaim Chopper. The final event was a captain's duel between Luffy and Foxy aboard Foxy's trap-filled ship. Even with Foxy's tricks, beams, and gadgets, Luffy turned the fight around and beat him. But the real danger came afterward, when the crew met Admiral Aokiji. Though calm at first, he reveals Robin's past made the crew a threat. He easily froze Robin and then defeated Luffy in a one-on-one fight, sparing them only because Luffy's earlier victory over Crocodile. Shaken by how overwhelming the Marines truly were, the Straw Hats sailed on with a grim new understanding of the dangers ahead. Water 7. After recovering from their clash with Aokiji, the Straw Hats followed a giant frog across the sea and stumbled onto the tracks of the sea train, nearly getting run over before arriving at Water 7, the famous city of shipwrights. There, they met Kokoro, Chimney, and Gombe, learn about the Puffing Tom, and head into the canal-filled city hoping to repair the Going Merry. Luffy, Nami, and Usopp sell the Skypiea gold for 300 million berry and seek out Galila's president, Iceberg, while Robin and Chopper explore the city. But Robin is suddenly shaken when a masked man whispers CP9 to her, and soon after, she vanished. Things quickly got worse. The Frankie family stole 200 million berry from Usopp and beat him badly, while shipwright Kaku inspected the Going Merry and delivered devastating news. The ship's keel was broken, and it could no longer be properly repaired. Luffy made the painful decision to replace the Merry, but when Usopp heard, he took it as a betrayal of a crewmate he loved. The crew stormed Frankie House to avenge him, but Frankie had already left with most of the money. Back at the ship, the argument between Luffy and Usopp exploded, ending with Usopp leaving the crew and challenging Luffy to a duel for ownership of the Merry. Though Usopp fought cleverly and pushed Luffy harder than expected, Luffy won and still left the Merry to him. The next morning, Water 7 was thrown into chaos when Iceberg was shot and he named Robin as one of the attackers. Frankie then attacked Luffy, revealing himself to be a cyborg, but the fight was interrupted when Gali La turned on the Straw Hats, believing they were behind the assassination attempt. As the city hunted them, Sanji and Chopper found Robin, who tearfully said she had to leave because staying with the crew would destroy them. That night, the truth came out. The attackers were CP9, undercover government agents who had framed the Straw Hats and infiltrated Gali La for years to obtain the blueprints to the ancient weapon Pluton, which was actually the same weapon that Crocodile had been looking for in the Alabasta Saga earlier, which was the whole reason he was trying to take over and recruited Robin to help him read the poneglyphs. Their true identities were Rob Lucci, Kaku, Khalifa, and Bluno, and they were acting under orders to seize Frankie, who was secretly Tom's other apprentice, Cutty Flam. Frankie's past then came to light. As a reckless young shipbuilder, he had been raised by Tom alongside Iceberg. Tom, who built Gold D. Rogers' ship, was arrested by the government, but earned a delay in his sentence by building the sea train that saved Water 7. Years later, CP5 chief Spandam framed Tom using Frankie's own battleships. Tom was executed, Frankie was run over trying to stop the train, and he rebuilt himself as a cyborg. Iceberg later entrusted Frankie with the Pluton blueprints. In the present, CP9 captured both Frankie and Usopp, while Robin surrendered to protect the Straw Hats from a buster call. As Aqua Laguna swallowed Water 7, Sanji snuck aboard the sea train carrying Robin and Frankie to Enies Lobby. Nami learned Robin's true reason for leaving, rescued Luffy and Zoro from the ridiculous places they were stuck, and joined forces with Gali La and the Frankie family. With Kokoro at the controls, the Straw Hats launched the prototype sea train Rocket Man straight into the storm, forming an unlikely alliance and setting off to save Robin and Frankie. Enies Lobby. The assault on Enies Lobby began the moment the Straw Hats, joined by the Frankie family and Gali La shipwrights, crashed onto the government island to rescue Robin and Frankie before they could be taken through the gates of justice. While the others fought through masses of marines, giant guards, and the island's defenses, Luffy charged ahead and reached the courthouse roof, where he defeated Bluno by unveiling Gear 2, a new technique that massively boosted his speed and power. Even then, Robin insisted she did not want to be saved and would rather die. When the crew finally stood before Robin and CP9 together, Robin's past and fears were laid bare. After a lifetime of betrayal, she believed the Straw Hats would eventually see her as a burden too. Luffy answered in the clearest way possible. After hearing that taking Robin back meant opposing the world government, he ordered Usopp, aka Soga King, which is his alter ego that he's been parading around in this arc, to burn down the government flag. With that single shot, the Straw Hats declared war on the world itself. Faced with that proof of loyalty, Robin finally broke down and admitted what she truly wanted. She wanted to live, and she wanted to go out to sea with them. The fight then turned into a race. Frankie burned the Pluton blueprints in front of CP9 so the government could never use them, and the Straw Hats stormed the Tower of Justice. CP9 forced them into a key hunt by claiming only one of 5 keys could unlock Robin's Sea Stone cuffs, which split the crew into separate battles. Luffy ran ahead to stop Lucci and Spandam, while the others each faced their own enemies inside the tower. Zoro battled Kaku, whose giraffe powers became more dangerous as the fight went on, while Sanji fought Jabra and created Diable Jambe to burn through his Tekai defense. Nami overcame Khalifa's bubble powers with the clever use of the Climatact, and Frankie defeated Fukuro after refueling himself with cola. Chopper pushed to his limits against Kumadori, took 3 rumble balls and transformed into a terrifying monster point before Frankie stopped him by blasting him into the sea. Meanwhile, Luffy caught up with Lucci just as Spandam accidentally triggered the Buster Call, summoning a fleet to destroy Enies Lobby. As the island fell into chaos, Frankie reached Robin and, with the help from Sogeking's impossible sniping, unlocked her handcuffs. Robin was finally free, and she immediately turned her Devil Fruit powers on Spandam. But escape was still nearly impossible. The fleet bombarded the island, the bridge collapsed, and the crew was trapped while Luffy continued a brutal final fight against Lucci. Even after taking devastating blows and nearly collapsing, Luffy rose again when Usopp dropped the Sogeking Act and screamed at him to keep fighting. Refusing to lose after everything they had risked, Luffy unleashed one final all-out attack and defeated Lucci for good. Just when it seemed the Straw Hats had no way out, they heard a familiar voice. The Going Merry appeared through the chaos and saved them one last time. With Sanji's earlier sabotage restoring the currents at the gates of justice, Nami steered them through the crossfire while Frankie launched the ship clear with coup de vent. They escaped Enies Lobby, but the Mary had reached her limit. With her hull finally split apart, the crew realized the miracle was over. After understanding that the ship had truly carried them one final time out of love, they gave Mary a Viking funeral. As the ship burned, the crew heard her spirit thank them for caring for her, turning their victory into one of the most painful goodbyes of their journey so far. Post-Enies Lobby. 2 days after escaping Enies Lobby, the Straw Hats rested in Water 7 while the city recovered from Aqua Laguna. Galley Law repaired the damage, the Frankie family rebuilt their home, and Frankie revealed that he had used the stolen 200 million berry to buy rare atom wood to build the crew a new ship. Before long, Vice Admiral Garp suddenly appeared, smashing through their wall, and shocked everyone by revealing that he was Luffy's grandfather. Yo, Luffy actually just connected to so many damn people in this series. Plot armor after plot armor. During his visit, Garp also explained that Shanks was one of the 4 emperors, aka the most powerful pirate captains in all of the One Piece world, known as the Yonko. And an even bigger secret, Luffy's father is Monkey D. Dragon, the famous revolutionary, one and the same as the mysterious man with the red dragon tattoo on his face that helped free Luffy when he was about to be executed by Buggy back in the East Blue Saga. Koby and Helmeppo were with him as well, and after a brief reunion, they parted ways with promises to meet again in the New World. As the crew waited for their new ship, they learned their updated bounties and were introduced to the Thousand Sunny, Frankie's dream ship. Though Frankie wanted to stay behind, the Straw Hats and Frankie family forced the issue until he finally accepted Luffy's invitation and joined the crew. At the same time, Usopp struggled with his pride and rehearsed how to return. The crew, especially Zoro, made clear he could not simply walk back without admitting any fault. When the Sunny finally set sail, and Garp began attacking from behind, Usopp broke down, apologized sincerely, and begged to return. Luffy immediately pulled him aboard, restoring the crew at last. As they escaped Water 7 on the Thousand Sunny's maiden voyage, news of the Straw Hats spread across the world, while elsewhere, Ace confronted Blackbeard, setting the stage for an even greater conflict ahead. Thriller Bark Saga. After the Straw Hats escaped Enies Lobby and set sail on the Thousand Sunny, this was a storyline that showed fans just how weird, gothic, and unpredictable One Piece could really get. This was the saga that dropped the crew into a haunted ghost ship adventure, introduced one of the strangest warlords they had faced so far, and proved that One Piece could mix horror, comedy, and mystery all in one. In the anime, the Thriller Bark Saga ran from 2007 to 2009 in Japan and spans a total of 58 episodes. So, let's get into the story. Thriller Bark. A few days after leaving Water 7, the Straw Hats settled into life aboard the Thousand Sunny, enjoying its new features until Zoro spotted a drifting barrel at sea. When they opened it, a strange red flare shot into the sky, and while trying to avoid an incoming storm, Frankie unveiled the Sunny's paddle wheel system and guided them into the froggy Florian Triangle. There, eerie singing led them to a ghost ship carrying a living skeleton named Brook. Brook immediately made an absurd first impression. From asking Nami to see her panties to casually answering Luffy's questions about whether skeletons can poop, Luffy, delighted, instantly asked him to join the crew, and Brook surprisingly accepted. But the joke gave way to tragedy when Brook explained that his shadow had been stolen, meaning sunlight would destroy him if he left the fog. Before he could explain more, Thriller Bark trapped the Sunny, and Brook fled across the water, warning them to escape. Naturally, Luffy wanted to explore. While Robin and Frankie backed him, the rest of the crew was less thrilled about being dragged into a haunted island surrounded by giant walls. Using the Mini Mary 2, Nami, Usopp, and Chopper reached shore first and quickly found themselves lost in a waterless moat, chased by a stitched up Cerberus, lured by the mysterious Hildun, and dumped in a graveyard filled with attacking zombies. What the hell is this place? Their escape led them to the mansion of Dr. Hogback, a famous doctor Chopper idolized, though Nami quickly suspected something was wrong cause bro is freaking creepy. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew brought the Sunny ashore where they were attacked by an invisible assailant and forced to march through forests full of bizarre creatures. As they searched for their missing friends, they met an old man with no shadow who revealed that Gecko Moria, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, was the thief behind all of this. At the mansion, Nami, Usopp, and Chopper also discovered that Hogback's maid, Sindri, was actually a dead actress revived as a zombie, and that a zombie samurai named Ryuma acted exactly like Brook, right down to asking for the panties. Somebody stop this man. As midnight struck, the island's true horrors came fully into view. Absalom, an invisible man with a stitched lion face, prepared the zombie generals, while Persona and Moria awakened inside Thriller Bark's tower. The crew learned that Thriller Bark was not just an island, but the world's largest pirate ship. As the Straw Hats pushed deeper inside, the group was split apart repeatedly. Sanji and Zoro went missing. Nami was targeted by Absalom's future bride, and Luffy, Frankie, and Robin fought through powerful zombies who seemed to use the techniques and personalities of real people. Brook soon reappeared and finally explained the truth. Moria's Shadow Fruit allowed him to steal shadows from living people and place them into corpses, creating obedient zombies that inherited the original owner's combat style. Hogback repaired the bodies, Moria supplied the shadows, and the result was an army of undead soldiers. Brook also revealed their weakness. Salt purified the zombies and released the shadows. That knowledge came too late to stop Moria from capturing Luffy. Using Persona's ghost to waken him, Moria ripped Luffy's shadow from his body and sent the unconscious captain back to the Sunny. He then inserted Luffy's shadow into the legendary giant corpse Oars, creating a monster with Luffy's personality, rubber abilities, and Moria's control. Around the same time, Frankie revealed a heartbreaking truth about Brook. He had belonged to the Rumbar Pirates, the very crew that had promised Laboon 50 years earlier they would return. The moment Luffy heard that, saving Brook became personal. The Straw Hats regrouped, revived Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro with a ridiculous lie about meat and a beautiful swordswoman, and launched a desperate counterattack before dawn, because once the sun rose, anyone whose shadow had been stolen would die. The battles then splintered into several personal showdowns. Usopp, uniquely immune to Persona's negative ghosts because he was already negative by nature, tracked down which is just hilarious, tracked down her real body and defeated her with one of his most ridiculous wins yet. Sanji stormed Absalom's forced wedding ceremony, furious over Nami's kidnapping, and beat him down while ranting that Absalom had stolen the invisibility fruit Sanji once dreamed of using for deeply questionable reasons. Yo! Zoro then took over Brook's duel with Ryuma, and after a fierce sword fight, defeated him and claimed the Black Blade Shusui. Once Ryuma fell, Brook's shadow finally returned to him. At the same time, Chopper's admiration for Hogback completely shattered when he saw how far the Doctor had fallen. With Robin's help, he exposed Hogback as a man who cared only about bodies, not lives, and even Sindri began resisting his commands. All of that led back to the central nightmare, Oars. The Straw Hats reunited in the courtyard and took him on together, but Oars was monstrously strong and Moria made things even worse by controlling him from inside his stomach. Even after combo attacks, salt strategies, and teamwork that finally started to break Oars down, the monster kept rising. Then Luffy returned after being filled with 100 shadows by the rolling pirates, transforming into Nightmare Luffy. In that state, he completely overwhelmed Oars and Moria for a time, smashing them through the island. But after the borrowed shadows left him, the fight still was not over. With sunrise approaching, the crew executed one final coordinated attack. They immobilized Oars, exposed his weakness, and launched Luffy skyward so he could crush the giant with a Gear 3 giant bazooka, causing Oars to finally fall. Moria himself still remained. Refusing to lose, he absorbed 1,000 shadows into his own body and transformed into a bloated nightmare called Shadows Asgard. The shadows inside him were too many to control, but he still rampaged through the ruins trying to kill the Straw Hats. Luffy fought through exhaustion and beat him away, forcing Moria to release the stolen shadows just before dawn. The people of Thriller Bark were saved, and the shadows flew back to their owners in time. But the danger was not over. Bartholomew Kuma, another warlord, arrived under world government orders to eliminate everyone who would have witnessed Moria's defeat. He casually crushed the exhausted survivors and offered to spare them only if they surrendered Luffy. Every single person refused. Zoro, realizing the crew had no chance in their condition, secretly offered his own life in place of Luffy's. Even Sanji tried to take that burden instead, but Zoro knocked him out and stood alone. Kuma then extracted all of Luffy's accumulated pain and exhaustion into a massive paw-shaped sphere and forced Zoro to take it all. When the others woke, Luffy was fine, but Zoro was standing bloodied amid the ruins. When Sanji asked what happened, Zoro simply answered, nothing. By the next day, the survivors celebrated. Brook played Bink's Sake, an iconic pirate song, and after learning from Luffy that Laboon was still waiting at Reverse Mountain, he broke down in tears. He remembered the Rumbar pirates' promise to Laboon, their slow deaths from disease and poison weapons, and the final song they recorded before Brook himself died and later revived through his devil fruit, the Revive fruit, which allowed his soul to return to his body after his death. Now, with his shadow restored and Laboon still waiting, Brook finally had a reason to move forward again. He officially joined the Straw Hats, pledged his life to Luffy, and sailed away from Thriller Bark with the crew at last. The Summit War Saga. Adapted from Ichiro Oda's manga, the Summit War Saga covers Luffy's journey in Sabaody, into Amazon Lily, to Impel Down, and finally to Marineford, where he fights through impossible odds to save his brother, Ace. It is one of the most important sagas in the entire series, revealing major truths about Ace, Luffy's family, the balance of power in the world, and the terrifying scale of what happens when the old era begins to fall apart. In the anime, the Summit War Saga ran from 2009 to 2011 in Japan and spans a total of 129 episodes. So let's get into the story. Sabaody Archipelago. After leaving Thriller Bark, the Straw Hats sailed toward the spot their log pose had been guiding them since Water 7, and finally reached the halfway point of the Grand Line, only to find the Red Line blocking their path to Fishman Island and the New World. Since the pose pointed downward, Luffy, Robin, and Brook searched underwater and the sharks submerged, but instead of finding the island, they were chased back up by a giant sea king. When Luffy punched it, the creature spat out a mermaid named Kami and her talking starfish friend. Kami explained that her friend, Hachan, had been captured by kidnappers planning to sell him, and the Straw Hats agreed to help. That led them into a clash with the Flying Fish Riders and their masked leader, Duval, who blamed Sanji for ruining his life because his real face looked exactly like Sanji's awful wanted poster. After a chaotic battle at sea, Sanji beat Duval badly enough to accidentally make him handsome, ending the grudge and turning Duval into an ally. Yo, this show is hilarious. Honestly, people sleep on One Piece. Well, okay, nobody sleeps on One Piece, but all of the One Piece haters out there, you need to tap in for real. The crew then shared takoyaki with Hachan and learned they would need their ship coated at Sabaody Archipelago in order to descend to Fishman Island. At Sabaody, the crew discovered a beautiful but cruel island ruled in practice by fear, slavery, and the world nobles. Hachan warned them never to oppose a noble, because doing so would bring down an admiral. They soon saw why when they witnessed Saint Charlos casually abuse and shoot people. Not long after, Kami is kidnapped. After she's kidnapped and taken to the human auction house, the situation turns much darker. The Straw Hats rush to Grove 1, hoping to save her without causing a scene, because they know attacking a world noble would bring disaster down on all of them. Inside, Kami is treated like merchandise, locked in a fishbowl with an explosive collar around her neck, while the auctioneer Disco hypes her up as the main attraction. Nami prepares to buy her freedom, but St. Charlos immediately crushes that hope by placing a massive bid and claiming her for himself. Then Luffy suddenly crashes into the auction house, with Zoro arriving too, and the tension explodes. When Hachan tries to stop Luffy, his identity as a fishman is exposed, and the crowd reacts with instant fear and disgust. Sharlos then shoots him right in front of everyone. Even while wounded, he begs Luffy not to strike back, knowing exactly what will happen if he attacks a world noble. But after watching his friend get shot and humiliated, Luffy finally snaps and delivers the punch that shocks the entire island. That single punch throws the auction house into total chaos. Guards swarm in, nobles panic, and the audience runs for their lives. The Straw Hats stop pretending they can escape quietly and move to save Koby by force. In the middle of the madness, Silver's Rayleigh suddenly appears, revealing himself as the mysterious captive from earlier. With overwhelming calm, he knocks out the guards and removes Koby's explosive collar so easily that it stuns everyone watching. Anyone that's further ahead, you know exactly what was going on, but I'm not trying to spoil it for everybody just yet. Shout out to the greatest writer in anime. Outside, the consequences of Luffy's actions spread instantly across Sabaody. Sengoku is informed, the Marines mobilize, and Admiral Kizaru sets out to handle the incident himself. At the same time, Doflamingo is contacted, but he shows no concern for the collapsing slave trade operation and leaves the mess behind, while the larger threat of Ace's soon-to-be execution is announced. As Ace is the 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates, they are essentially declaring war with Whitebeard. Meanwhile, once the Marines surround the building, escape turns into open war, as Luffy is aided by the Supernovas, Kid, and Trafalgar Law, members of the worst generation, aka the Super Rookies, 11 rookie pirates with bounties exceeding 100 million berries, who will all arrived at Sabaody Archipelago around the same time, posing the greatest threat to the balance of the world order in One Piece. Kid, Law, and Luffy briefly fight on the same side, and the 3 captains tear through the Marines in a display that proves why they are the most dangerous rookies on the island. Afterward, the Straw Hats regroup with Rayleigh, who reveals the truth about Roger. Rayleigh was Roger's first mate, the king of the pirates' right hand. Roger conquered the Grand Line while terminally ill, however, and disbanded his crew, then turned himself in, using his death to launch the Great Age of Pirates. Rayleigh then agrees to coat the Sunny, and for a moment, it feels like the crew may finally have a path forward. But things become a complete nightmare. Marine Admiral Kizaru arrives and begins crushing pirates with terrifying ease. Around the island, the Supernovas are pushed to their limits, while the Straw Hats discover that the Kuma they are fighting is actually a pacifista, one of several nearly unstoppable cyborg weapons. Even after barely defeating one, they are in no condition to keep fighting. Then, Sentomaru arrives with another pacifista, Kizaru personally targets them, and Rayleigh has to step in just to help keep Zoro alive. Finally, the real Kuma appears, and the arc turns tragic. One by one, the Straw Hats are made to disappear. Zoro, Brook, Usopp, Sanji, Frankie, Nami, Robin, and Chopper, until Luffy is left alone, helplessly watching his crew vanish in front of him, until eventually he is blasted away himself, and what began as a rescue mission ends as the Straw Hats' most devastating defeat yet. Amazon Lily. After Luffy is sent flying by Kuma and lands on a strange island after days in the air, injured and alone, he tries to recover, hunts food, and accidentally covers himself in poisonous mushrooms. He is found unconscious by Marguerite, Sweet Pea, and Aphilandra, who bring him back to their village and remove the mushrooms, only to discover in shock that he is a man. The island that they're on is called Amazon Lily, homeland of the Kuja, a nation of female warriors where men are forbidden. Luffy is locked up, but his stretching powers and strange behavior leave the woman fascinated as much as frightened. When they decide he must be killed, he escapes into the jungle with Marguerite, who returns the life card he received from Silver's Rayleigh, which would help him find him later, and explains the island's isolation in the Calm Belt, along with the strength of their ruler, Boa Hancock. Luffy tries to build a raft and leave, fails instantly, and then learns the Kuja can use hockey through their arrows, a mysterious power that Luffy has claimed to never heard of before. But for all of you dedicated fans out there, you know that hockey has been shown in this anime time and time again before we even got to this point. If you're confused or don't believe me, look it up. This video is not a hockey explanation, but you gonna find out a little bit sooner. Elsewhere, at sea, Hancock refuses the government's summons despite Ace's coming execution, turns Marines to stone using her devil fruit powers, and returns home to a hero's welcome. Back on the island, the Kujas speak of the Gorgon curse, said to rest on Hancock and her sister's backs. Luffy accidentally crashes into Hancock's bath, sees the mark on her back, and is captured. Set for execution and thrown into an arena, Hancock punishes Marguerite and her friends by turning them to stone, then orders Luffy's execution. He defeats and battles Hancock's sisters, Marigold and Sandersonia, and during the fight, he unleashes a powerful wave, unbeknownst to him, of Conqueror's Haki, and more importantly, protects Sandersonia's exposed back from the crowd. That selfless act changes Hancock's view of him. Hancock finally reveals the truth. She and her sisters were once slaves of the Celestial Dragons, and the so-called cursed is really a slave brand. Luffy says he hates not her, but the world nobles. When he learns Ace is about to be executed, he gives up reuniting with his crew for now and chooses to save his brother instead. Hancock, now in love with him, agrees to help him reach Impel Down, while elsewhere, the other Straw Hats are scattered across strange islands of their own. Impel Down. With Ace locked away in level 6 of Impel Down and only hours remaining before his execution, Luffy infiltrated the underwater prison by hiding beneath Boa Hancock's robe as she entered under her warlord privileges. Once inside, Hancock secretly helped him slip away during her inspection, allowing him to begin a desperate solo mission to find Ace before it was too late. At the same time, Ace spoke with Garp in his cell, making it painfully clear that he rejected Roger as a father and saw Whitebeard as his only true one. Luffy's search through the prison quickly turned into chaos. On level 1, he ran into Buggy, who had escaped his cell and immediately decided that teaming up with Luffy was the best way to survive. Buggy tried to bargain and lie his way through the prison, but after the two crashed into level 2, they were joined by Mr. 3, who also saw Luffy's break-in as his chance to escape. The deeper they went, the more horrifying the prison became. From the blade-filled Crimson Hell to the monster-packed Beast Hell and the scorching Starvation Hell. Along the way, the prison finally realized Luffy's true goal. He had broken into Impel Down to save Ace. As Hancock met Ace and secretly delivered the news that Luffy had come for him, Luffy found a powerful new ally on level 3, Bon Clay. Overjoyed to see Luffy again, Bon immediately chose friendship over safety and joined the rescue mission. Together with Buggy and Mr. 3, they pushed into level 4, defeating Minotaurus and pressing on even as Ace begged from below for Luffy not to come any further. Outside the prison, the wider world was already shaking, with Kaido moving against Whitebeard and Shanks intercepting him, while Marineford prepared for war. In blazing hell, Luffy finally ran into Magellan, the monstrous chief warden whose poison powers made him almost untouchable. Even after hearing the danger, Luffy refused to back down because revealing how he entered the prison would endanger Hancock. He launched himself at Magellan anyway, sacrificing his own body just to land blows. But Magellan's poison overwhelmed him completely. Luffy was defeated, drenched in multiple deadly toxins, and sentenced to die in level 5's freezing wasteland. That was where Bon Clay's loyalty truly shined. Refusing to abandon Luffy, Bon disguised himself, outwitted the prison staff, searched desperately for a cure, and when none existed, dragged Luffy through the frozen hell toward the only miracle he could think of, Emporio Ivankov. Bon fought through wolves, cold, and exhaustion simply because Luffy was his friend. Their gamble paid off when they were rescued and taken to New Kama Land, a hidden paradise inside Impel Down ruled by Ivankov. There, while Bon and the others cheered him on without rest, Luffy endured brutal hormone treatment that consumed years of his life. Against all odds, he survived in less than a day, rose back to his feet, and prepared to continue the rescue of Ace. Marineford. As Ace stood on the execution platform at Marineford, the entire world watched and argued over whether Whitebeard would really come for him. The Marines had prepared for the worst. 100,000 elite soldiers, 50 battleships, the 3 admirals, the remaining warlords, and the fleet admiral of the Marines, Sengoku the Buddha. Sengoku made the war even more heavy by revealing the truth to the world. Ace was not just Whitebeard's 2nd Division commander, but was the son of the legendary pirate king, Gol D. Roger. He explained how Ace's mother, Porteous D. Rouge, had carried him for 20 months to keep him hidden from the world government, dying immediately after giving birth. That revelation stunned the world and dragged Garp back into painful memories of Roger entrusting Ace to him before his death. So Garp was in on this shit too. Yo, One Piece has some crazy plot development. All the things you think you know just start shifting and you start connecting the dots afterward. This is an amazing series, like, bro. As the shock spread, Whitebeard finally arrived. Instead of attacking from the front, he coated his ships and surfaced directly beneath Marineford's bay, bringing the Moby Dick and his allied crews right into the heart of the battlefield. Before the battle fully erupted, Ace's past unfolded. How he had formed the Spade Pirates, met Shanks to thank him for saving Luffy, clashed with Jinbei for 5 days, and eventually encountered Whitebeard. Though Ace resisted joining him at first and even tried to kill him numerous times, he eventually came to see Whitebeard as his true father figure. Later, after Blackbeard murdered Thatch, Ace ignored Whitebeard's warning and chased him, the very choice that led to his capture. In the present, Ace begged everyone to leave him, but Whitebeard and his sons refused to abandon him. Whitebeard struck first by cracking the air itself with the power of the Quake fruit, aka the Tremor fruit, sending massive sea quakes across the bay and creating enormous tsunamis. Aokiji froze the waves and then the bay itself, forcing the pirates and marines into direct combat on the ice. Mihawk tested Whitebeard's power, but Jozu intercepted his slash. Kizaru attacked from above only for Marco in his phoenix form to stop him. One of the marine admirals, Akainu, answered by destroying a giant iceberg with magma. Then, Little Oars Jr. charged forward, determined to save Ace out of love for the man who had once made him a giant straw hat. Even after Kuma blasted him, Doflamingo cut off his leg, and Moria impaled him. Oars Jr. dragged himself forward and opened a path for the pirates before collapsing just short of Ace. Whitebeard, furious but composed, ordered his forces to use that sacrifice to push into the plaza. Meanwhile, Luffy and the Impel Down escapees finally reached Marineford in spectacular fashion. Their ship had been stranded atop one of the frozen tsunami waves, but after overhearing an order to execute Ace ahead of schedule, Ivankov blasted the ship forward, accidentally sending everyone crashing from the sky into the battlefield below. By luck, they landed in one of the few unfrozen patches of sea. Jinbei rescued the Devil Fruit users, and soon Luffy stood atop the wreckage and locked eyes with Ace. The battlefield erupted in disbelief as Crocodile, Ivankov, Buggy, Jinbei, and the escaped prisoners appeared in the middle of the war. Sengoku was furious, Garp was stunned, Hancock relieved, and even the warlords took notice. The war to save Ace then explodes into chaos almost immediately. Jinbei formally renounces his warlord title, Crocodile tries to take Whitebeard's life, and Luffy throws himself in the way to stop him, making it clear that even in the middle of a battlefield full of legends, his only goal is saving his brother. Whitebeard quickly notices the straw hat and connects Luffy to Shanks, even recalling that Shanks once said he had placed his missing arm on a bet on the new age of pirates. Luffy, fearless as ever, boldly declares that he will rescue Ace and one day become Pirate King himself, stunning both pirates and marines. Before charging ahead, he warns Whitebeard that the marines plan to execute Ace early, but Whitebeard realizes Sengoku leaked that information on purpose to throw the pirates into confusion. Even so, Luffy keeps pushing forward as Ivankov backs him up. Kuma attacks his former ally without hesitation. Hina tries to trap Luffy, and Moria unleashes zombies to slow him down. Ace, horrified to see his younger brother in the middle of such a war, yells at Luffy to stay away, claiming that he would be humiliated if a weakling saved him. Though the truth is, he simply does not want Luffy to die for him. Luffy refuses to listen, shouting that they are brothers and that no pirate code matters more than that. Then the battlefield is rocked again when Sengoku reveals to everyone Luffy was the son of Monkey D. Dragon, the supreme commander and founder of the Revolutionary Army, bent on opposing the world government, and the son of Monkey D. Garp. How's that for family drama? Luffy barely reacts, smashing through Marines with Gear 3 and insisting that he will save Ace even if it kills him, a determination that impresses Whitebeard enough to make him order Marco not to let the boy die. As the war widens, Whitebeard begins directing the battlefield with terrifying insight. He temporarily allies with Buggy and escaped Impel Down prisoners to avoid fighting them, while battling the Marines, ordering his subordinate crews to split left and right, and forces Sengoku and Garp to realize he has seen through their strategy. Jinbei defeats Moria's attempt to power himself up with stolen shadows, but Luffy is soon pinned by Smoker until Hancock intervenes with Haki, openly choosing Luffy over the Marines. She then secretly gives Luffy the key to Ace cuffs, and his grateful hug nearly makes her faint with joy. Elsewhere, Ivankov confronts Kuma and learns from Doflamingo the horrifying truth. Kuma has been fully transformed by Vegapunk into PX-0, a mindless weapon of the government. Ivankov is devastated but refuses to back down, deciding to hold Kuma off while sending his followers to support Luffy. Meanwhile, Crocodile cuts through everything in his way and keeps moving toward Whitebeard. Clashing with both Jozu and Doflamingo, while Mihawk personally steps in to test Luffy, Luffy knows he cannot afford a real duel, so he sprints, dodges, improvises, and even shamelessly uses Buggy as a human shield to survive. Marco finally sends Vista to stall Mihawk, and Mihawk realizes something important about Luffy. The boy has an uncanny gift for turning everyone around him into allies, which Mihawk views as the most dangerous power on the sea. Then, Sengoku's true endgame begins. Sentomaru arrives with an army of pacifistas, and the Marines try to box Whitebeard's forces into the bay. Whitebeard's earlier order to split his men suddenly makes perfect sense, because it saves them from total encirclement. The pacifistas begin mowing down pirates with beams from their mouths and hands, while Sengoku pulls the Marines back and prepares for the final phase. Buggy's hijacked broadcast briefly keeps civilians updated, but the real shock comes when Squard suddenly appears before Whitebeard and stabs him straight through the chest. Everyone freezes. Squard, manipulated by Akiinu, believes Whitebeard made a secret deal with the Marines to sacrifice all the subordinate captains in exchange for saving Ace and his own core crew. He also burns with hatred after learning Ace is Roger's son. Yet, Whitebeard does not retaliate. Instead, he embraces Squard like a father, comforting a foolish son, and calmly explains that the Marines preyed on his hatred and fear. To prove his sincerity to everyone else, Whitebeard shatters the frozen sea and gives his subordinates a path to retreat if they choose. Rather than abandon him, they rally harder than ever. Whitebeard accepts that he is an old man with one heart and decides to use what remains of his life to secure the future for the next generation. He charges toward the execution platform, tilts Marineford itself with a colossal quake, defeats giants like John Giant, and forces the Marines to activate giant iron walls and an artillery trap. Akainu rains magma down, destroys the Moby Dick, and turns the enclosed bay into a hellscape of fire, cannon blasts, and boiling sea. Still, Luffy keeps forcing his way forward. Luffy's desperation reaches another level when Oars Jr., thought to be finished, rises again long enough for Jinbei to launch Luffy in a column of water straight over the walls and in front of all three admirals. It is one of the boldest moments in the war, but also one of the clearest reminders that Luffy is still outmatched. Kizaru kicks him aside, Aokiji wounds him, and only intervention from Crocodile, Marco, Hancock, and the Whitebeard pirates keep him alive. Even so, the pirates finally break into the plaza itself. Whitebeard storms in like a natural disaster, clashes head-on with Akainu, and shakes Marineford apart, but the cost is enormous. Marco is cuffed with sea stone and riddled with light attacks by Kizaru. Jozu is frozen and shattered by Aokiji, and Whitebeard's own sickness catches up with him at the worst possible time. As Ace stands on the verge of execution, Luffy, broken and exhausted, begs Ivankov for another shot of hormones, even though it could destroy his body. Ivankov warns him that he is throwing his life away, but Luffy says failing to save Ace would be worse. Revived through sheer stubbornness, he charges again, even knocking out Koby when the young Marine tries to stop him. When the executioners finally move, Luffy unleashes a tremendous burst of Conqueror's Haki without even understanding what he has done, knocking them out and shocking everyone on the battlefield. Whitebeard immediately orders all forces to support Luffy, effectively betting the future all on him. Pirates who barely knew Luffy moments before now shield him with their lives. Crocodile and Mr. One even interfere to block Mihawk. The whole war narrows to one objective: get Luffy to Ace. At last, Luffy reaches the platform with the key Hancock gave him, but after everything he has endured, can barely stand. Mr. 3 steps in at a crucial moment to help unlock Ace's cuffs, and together, the brothers finally break free. For one brief stretch, the impossible seems to have happened. Ace and Luffy fight side by side, fire and rubber, crashing through the surrounding Marines as Whitebeard's men open a path for them to retreat. Whitebeard, despite being battered, keeps holding back the enemy and even laughs when Ace bows and tearfully calls him a good father. But the Marines still have one last weapon, Akainu's cruelty. He taunts the fleeing pirates, calling Whitebeard a loser from a dead era, and Ace cannot ignore the insult. He turns back, clashes with Akainu, and is overpowered because magma burns hotter than lava. When Akainu then goes after the weakened Luffy, Ace steps in front of his brother and takes the fatal blow through the chest. Ace dies in Luffy's arms, thanking everyone who showed him love. Luffy completely breaks. Whitebeard, shattered by Ace's death, unleashes his full rage and nearly destroys the man and Marineford itself. Then Blackbeard arrives, kills Whitebeard after a brutal confrontation in a sudden twist, and steals his devil fruit power, plunging the battlefield into even greater madness. The war only ends when Koby finally screams for the fighting to stop and is nearly killed by Akainu for it, only for Shanks to arrive at the last second. Shanks blocks Akainu, declares that Koby's courage changed the future, and demands an end to the war. With the red-haired pirates now present, even the Marines stop. Law escapes with the unconscious Luffy and Jinbei aboard his submarine, while Buggy returns the straw hat at Shanks' request. The war closes, not with triumph, but with execution, grief, and a world permanently changed by Ace's death. Whitebeard's fall, and the passing of the Summit War of Marineford, known as the greatest war of the Great Age of Pirates. Post-war. After the war ends, the world reacts in wildly different ways. Civilians and Marines celebrate Whitebeard's death, while pirates are electrified by his final declaration that the One Piece is real. But the victory brings no peace. With Whitebeard gone, the balance of the three great powers begins to crumble, and chaos spreads immediately as pirates like Brownbeard attack islands that Whitebeard once protected. At the same time, Hancock tracks Law's submarine, learns that Luffy is alive but in critical condition, and joins up with Ivankov, Jinbei, and the Impel Down escapees. Jinbei is less worried about Luffy's body than what will happen when he wakes up and has to face Ace's death. To keep him safe, they bring Luffy to Amazon Lily. Elsewhere, Sengoku learns that Blackbeard caused a breakout of dangerous level 6 prisoners, but the world government chooses to hide that truth from the public. At Marineford, Gecko Moria is nearly executed by Doflamingo and pacifistas because the government now considers him too weak to remain a warlord. 2 weeks later, the aftermath is still spreading across the seas as new pirates rise everywhere. On Amazon Lily, Luffy wakes up in a frenzy, trying to convince himself Ace's death was only a dream. Law warns that if he keeps rampaging, his wounds will reopen and kill him. Hancock is desperate to see him, but is kept away. Eventually, Luffy calms down enough to remember everything, and Jinbei confirms the truth. Ace is dead. Luffy breaks down completely. This grief shifts the story into a long flashback to Dawn Island, where Garp, young Luffy with Curly Dawn, who was already entrusted with Ace via Garp as well. The two boys hated each other at first, but Luffy kept chasing after Ace no matter how often Ace tried to ditch or nearly kill him. Eventually, Luffy followed Ace into Grey Terminal, where Ace was secretly working with another boy, Sabo, to save money for a pirate ship. After Luffy is captured and tortured by pirates, he refuses to betray Ace and Sabo, proving how badly he wants connection and how terrified he is of being alone. That loyalty leads Ace and Sabo to save him, and from then on, the three begin living, training, and surviving together like brothers. The flashback deepens when Sabo reveals he is actually a runaway noble from the Goa Kingdom, who hates the cruelty and emptiness of his class. Ace, Sabo, and Luffy seal their bond by sharing sake cups and swearing brotherhood. But their happiness is shattered when Sabo is dragged back home, and the nobles secretly arrange for Grey Terminal to be burned down to impress an incoming celestial dragon. Ace and Luffy are caught in the fire and nearly killed, while Sabo escapes his home, witnesses the truth of the massacre, and encounters Dragon. Dawn and the bandits rescue Ace and Luffy from Blue Jam, and Dragon's revolutionaries save many of the people trapped in the flames. Soon after, Sabo tries to flee the kingdom by sea, only for a celestial dragon to casually blow up his boat. Believing Sabo dead, Ace and Luffy are devastated. Sabo's letter later reaches them, asking Ace to take care of Luffy. In response, The two promise to grow stronger, become pirates, and chase true freedom. The story then shows the years passing. Ace leaves first at 17, thanking Dodon before setting sail, and Luffy follows 3 years later, finally strong enough to depart on his own journey. The story finally returns to the present, where Luffy is still crushed by grief and says for the first time that he is too weak to become Pirate King. Back in East Blue, Dodon attacks Garp in rage and sorrow, insisting that the one suffering most is Luffy. In the New World, Shanks and Marco hold a funeral for Ace and Whitebeard. Jinbei then forces Luffy to stop drowning in guilt and asks him what he still has left. Through his tears, Luffy realizes the answer: his crew. That realization gives him something to live and fight for again. Just then, Rayleigh arrives on Amazon Lily, setting the stage for Luffy's next step forward. With the Straw Hats scattered across the world, each of them reacts to the news of Luffy and Ace in a different way. Meanwhile, at Sabaody, Duval and the Rosy Life Riders continue guarding the Thousand Sunny, while Shaky believes Rayleigh has already reached Luffy. Around the world, others connected to the Straw Hats react too. Vivi, Cobra, and Karu worry, Crocodile decides to head back to the New World, and Buggy receives a shocking message from the government. Elsewhere, the Five Elders, a council of the 5 highest-ranking celestial dragons, collectively titled the highest authorities of the world government, discuss Blackbeard, the vacant warlord seats, and the meaning of the D, which, if you haven't noticed, Monkey D Luffy, Gold D Roger, D Garp, D Dragon, there's something called the Will of D going on. We gonna tap into that later. Sengoku then resigns and Garp steps down, while Smoker requests a transfer to the New World, and Koby is told that he has awakened Haki. The Marines then reveal that Luffy has caused a stir as he returned to Marineford with Jinbei and Rayleigh, circled the island, rang the Ox Bell 16 times, laid flowers, and prayed. To the public, it looks like mourning, but to the Marines, it signals the end of one era and the beginning of another. That message spreads across the seas. Kid sees it as a challenge, while Hawkins, Drake, Apu, Law, and Blackbeard all begin making moves of their own. On Amazon Lily, the real meaning becomes clear. Luffy had 3D on his arm, crossed out, with 2Y next to it, which means the crew should not reunite in 3 days, but in 2 years. Luffy deliberately drew attention to himself so his crew would understand they were too weak for the New World and needed time to grow. Chopper studies medicine and plants, Sanji trains for attack cuisine, Nami studies advanced weather science, Robin goes with the revolutionaries, Frankie studies Vegapunk's blueprints, Usopp trains with Heracles and learns pop greens, and Zoro humbles himself and asks Mihawk to train him. Finally, Jinbei parts from Luffy, promising to wait at Fishman Island, and Rayleigh brings Luffy to Ruskaina. There, Rayleigh explains the basics of Haki, demonstrating it against a charging elephant. He lays out that there are 3 types: the ability to sense others, observation Haki, the ability to strengthen one's body, and attacks, armament Haki, and the rare power to overwhelm others with spirit alone, Conqueror's Haki. Luffy realizes he has already encountered these powers in different forms throughout his journey thus far, but Rayleigh tells him that now he must truly learn to control them. He says that 2 years should be enough time to teach Luffy the basics of all 3. And with that, the Straw Hats spend a full 2 years apart training for the battles in the New World ahead. Luffy leaving his straw hat and card in the island's one safe place on a rock as he begins training to take over the New World. Thanks for watching the channel. Don't forget to slap the subscribe button and click the bell icon so you never miss another update. Until next time, peace.